I think I would just play the role of a theory supporter.
Thank you, Bob.
I think, yes, I know you need, and Drew as well. I think translation theory is very, very, very important. Now, why? First of all, let me say that I think it's language and language and language. That would be the most important thing, because otherwise, if we don't have good language skills, then is this almost impossible to do translation. And also close reading, sensitivity to the text, and so on and so forth. All that would be very, very important. But I think also I'm very concerned about the status of a translator. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows that people in society, everyone in society, everyone thinks that they can translate. And then when you take something, when you take out a piece of translation, it's all too easy to be sort of slammed at left, right, and center by people who just don't know a thing about translation. Now, in such a situation, then, again, I like to talk about situation. In such a situation, then I think translation theory comes in useful, because you could then explain to, whether it be your client, whether it be your supervisor, whether it be your colleagues, and so on and so forth, why it is that you have chosen to do this particular piece of translation in this particular manner. I think very often people in society or your clients, they want to know, they want to feel reassured that you know what you're doing, that you are in a way a professional. I think once they've established that relationship of trust with the translator, then life becomes much easier for a translator. And I think this is the time when translation theory would come in very useful. This is one situation. Another situation is, like many of us here, I've never received any formal training in translation. I got all my 3 degrees in English literature, and then I switched over to translation. And then I remember when I first started to translate, I did it with almost trepidation. Now, I violated the first law, which is never translate into your second language. So I translated into my second language, and of course, in this enormous sense of, sort of anxiety, whether I'm, good enough, and so on and so forth. Why is it that I'm doing something which all the textbooks on translation tell you not to do? Then sometimes, then you need a lot of reassurance. But then at that time, I haven't yet read any translation theory, so I was just still, like Tang Xiaoping. I was just, just crossing the river in a rather pragmatic sort of manner. And then I remember, so that's another situation. When after I've learned more theory, then I was able just to counter all these sort of, whether it be verbal or non-verbal skepticism or looks of, lack of trust and so on and so forth, with certain things that might make sense to them. So I just think that translation doesn't take place in a theoretical vacuum. We're always using some sort of theory. Sometimes we're more conscious of it, and sometimes we're more articulate about it than others. So I'll stop it.
And, well, I teach mostly theory for about 10 years. And we, in the theory class, we only talk about translation. We don't do anything. We don't do a single word of translating. So, and here the questions, theory, translation theory, my answer to what role the translation theory plays. Well, the first is depending on the definition of theory. And well, whatever it means, my answer would be very, very important or extremely important. Are there some types of theory more useful than others? I have to say yes, because we have the limitation of time. We can't teach them everything. We have to prioritize. And since we are training translators, we are not training scholars. So we have to prioritize all these different kind of theories. And I'm teaching since other related questions have to do with the postgraduate studies. So I'm teaching both undergrad and postgrad. I teach totally different theories. So for the undergrads, I teach mostly the more practical the theories that have to do with the translating. And for research students, I teach other things. Any textbooks have a benefit of good textbooks. I agree with John, and I also find Peter Newmark is probably the most useful because he's the most practical. Peter Newmark of all, but his only thing is his books are not quite well organized. He's a brilliant person. I believe he's a brilliant translator as well. But it's just one of his more recent books is called Paragraphs in Translation. He doesn't even bother to sort out his ideas to produce one paragraph after that, unrelated, totally unrelated. Yeah. But I think that is a very useful book in teaching, and of course he's one of the important gurus, in training translators. And I think we none of us have ever studied translation before teaching translation, but I can come back to this definition of theory. I take theory and theory and translation studies. Take the broadest term. You can say theory is translation studies, or translation studies is translation theory. And theory I think theory or a framework or a model that can make translation more teachable. It does not necessarily make translation more interesting to teach or more boring, but it's making it more teachable. We have to start from somewhere. And in this regard, I think Christiana Nord has a very good idea about subjective theories. She used the term subjective theories. So everyone, even the ordinary readers or a student, and I think everyone have her own theories about translation. Even somebody who has never studied, who has never read any translation. So in the theory class, we can help the students to sort out their private theories. So our theory, we can. I shouldn't call it theory, meta theory, okay. We provide a conceptual tool for the students to analyze their private theories, and then provide them with other theories, other possibilities. And because if we accept everybody has her own theories, so we have to be able to train the students to learn, at least to be aware of other possible private theories. So in the end, I hope if we talk long enough, the students can gradually establish some more objective theories. I think that's all I have to say here. Okay.
Very, very persuasive. Do I believe a word of it? Actually, I do. I'm surprised. I have focused much of my teaching. If you ask me what is the point of translation theory, I will say, well, excuse me, where is the testable hypothesis? Where is the experiment? Right? That's what theory means, scientific method. Let's leave that to scientists. We don't do that. It's not appropriate. And that's my objection to translation theory, is the attempt to make translation into some kind of hard science. This is just not appropriate. We work in the humanities. Whatever kind of text we're translating,